Hi, BookTube, it's Amy, and I'm here today to read aloud from a collection of essays titled Essays at Large by Solomon Eagle. This is an early 20th century collection on various literary and bookish topics. And I didn't know anything about, and I still don't really know much about Solomon Eagle. Googling Solomon Eagle turns up search results for Solomon Eccles, which is not the gentleman that we're looking for. So I don't know much about him. I think he was probably possibly English, given that this book is printed in Great Britain. But it's entirely possible he was from this other side of the ocean. I don't really know. But it appears that he wrote a number of collections of essays on various literary and bookish topics. And I thought I'd read today for you one titled Reading in Bed, which is, it just happens to be the very first essay in this particular collection, which I believe was printed in 1922, but I don't know when this essay was first published. But sometime in the early 20th century, here is one titled Reading in Bed. Discussion amongst human beings is very difficult. There were 3 of us, and we talked about reading in bed. At the end of a quarter of an hour, it dawned on us, we had had faint glimmerings of this before, that we had been talking about different things. What is the best thing to read in bed? It sounds a sufficiently concrete item in the agenda, but we had overlooked the fact that men might read in bed with different motives. If you were staying in a country house for the night and found one of those little sliding bookcases on the table beside your bed, what would you like to find in it? That also looked definite enough, but neither was really sufficiently precise. No allowance was made for temperament. Of course, we all know what we should find in it, granted a cultivated household, where the furniture was good, the walls tastefully hung, and the host and hostess au fait with modern literature and the latest political thought. Very little latitude is conceivable. Either the small bookcase would contain 2 volumes of Mr. Shaw's plays, a volume of Mr. Granville Barker's, some Chekhov short stories, a book of sketches by Mr. Galsworthy, and a faded Isbin volume published by the firm of Walter Scott, or else it would contain Mr. Chesterton's The Defendant, and a Miscellany of Men, Mr. Belloc's On Anything, and Hills and the Sea, a volume of essays by Mr. Lucas and Idlehurst. Stay, there is a third possibility. Wordsworth's Rab and His Friends, the Velima Letters, and the Essays of Elia, with Matthew Arnold's Essays of Criticisms and something of Walter Bagot's. These are what one would and does repeatedly find. The question is, what would one wish to find and why? I gather that there are 3 objects in reading in bed. Some men pursue only one, some pursue each in turn, some have 2 or more in mind as alternatives at any particular moment. Firstly, you may read in bed in order to send yourself to sleep at the earliest possible moment. Well, there are occasions when one feels like that. I myself have for many years kept beside my pallet Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. I have never got through it. I always begin again at the same place, to wit, the first line. The result is that I probably know the first 3 pages as well as any man alive, and that I am totally ignorant as to what comes after. I may say in self-defense that I am not in the least degree curious about what comes after, but there it is. That is the first mode, and that the first object of reading in bed. Next, there is the moderate course and the sensible object of the man who likes to read a little in bed, but does not want to be deprived of what grandmother would have called his beauty sleep. The book must not be boring. It must not be too exciting. It must be interesting on every page, but dramatic nowhere. There must be a stream of event, but no definite break. Well, I do not really think that those volumes of essays quite suit the case. The end of an essay usually comes just before the fatal final blink, and one wants to begin another. What one needs is the book that can be begun anywhere and dropped anywhere. and I can conceive no books better in that regard than Boswell, Gibbon, Halkett, and Lucas's Life of Lamb. These are so long and so uniform that there is no hope of finishing them in a night, and no fear of worrying about a climax not reached. And they are so good that one never minds if one reads the same page over and over again. I found in our discussion that each of these species of nocturnal reading was favored by one of my friends. But for myself, I shamelessly confessed that however tired I might be, I should always, even were the whole contents of the British Museum at the call from my bed, ask for a shocker. Give me Bulldog Drummond, Station X, or Trent's Last Case, and I will read in bed until dawn. Let sleep go. Let the morrow's duties go. Let health, prudence, and honor go. The bedside book for me is the book that will longest keep me awake. It is a large subject and one seldom discussed. Hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people every night in England read something in bed. They say nothing about it except, I read for a little last night and then slept like a top. Or, I didn't feel like going to sleep last night, so I read for a bit. Or, I began reading so-and-so in bed last night, and damn the book, I couldn't get to sleep until I finished it. Usually nothing at all is said. If anything is said, it is very little. But what a large slice of each person's lives has gone in this harmless occupation. We get our clothes off, we get our pajamas on, we wind our watches, we arrange the table and the light, and get into bed. We pile up or double up the pillows, then we settle down to it. Sometimes the book is so exciting that all thought of sleep fades away, and we read on, oblivious of everything except the unseen menace in that dark house, the boat gliding stealthily along that misty river, the Chinaman's eyes peering through that greenish-yellow fog, or the sudden crack of the revolver in that den of infamy. Sometimes we read for a while, and then feel as though we could go peacefully to sleep. Sometimes we struggle desperately to gum our failing attention to the acute analysis and safe deductions of our author. Our eyes squint and swim, our head dizzies, we feel drunk, and dropping the book aside from lax hands, just manage to get the light out before falling back into a dense and mirror slumber. We all know those fights against inevitable sleep, those resolves to reach the inaccessible end of the chapter, those swimmings in the head, those relapses into the gulf of slumber. And we all know those long readings when the mystery and suspense of the text so excite us that every creak of the stair and every fluttering of the pertinacious moths makes the heart stand still, and then keeps it beating hard for minutes. We have all turned the light out just in time. We have all turned it out from boredom, or in an access of determination, determined common sense, and then turned it on again to resume the dreary reading where we left the piece of paper or the pencil in the page. But we seldom talk about it. It is a part of our private lives, really, which include also our operations in the bathroom and our contrivances for keeping at certain moments our clothes together. These are universal experiences which each man thinks peculiar to himself, yet which hardly anybody ever thinks worth mentioning. And that is the end of Reading in Bed. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did.